Hello everybody, welcome to this pop-up live, and as you can see we're donning the old latex masks, the latex gloves tonight. Latex masks, a different thing, we'll edit that bit out, because we were going to do a live tonight and then we weren't going to do a live because I thought I would be elsewhere down in West Somerset today, but I'm not in West Somerset, I'm back in North Somerset. And Drew couldn't do a show tonight because I told him we weren't doing a show. So anyway, so I thought tonight I'll answer a few questions, keep this nice and short. But one of the things that somebody on Twitter asked me, and if we just bear with me a second whilst I let you know, bear with. You can tell I prepared this tonight. It was Mr. B who asked about, are those cheap Fender airbrushes you trialed a while back still going strong? I'm thinking of picking one up. Thanks. Well, I thought tonight we'll go on better than that. We'll not only talk about whether they're still going strong, but actually we'll do some painting live on the internet. So what have we got here? We've got our two Fender airbrushes. Now, I could have, before the show, given them a bit more of a bit of spit and polish, because these, although these have been cleaned, they could do with a little bit more of a deep clean. But I thought, no, we will use these exactly how they are currently sat in the workshop here. In there, kind of like ready to go. Bear with, ready to go, but you know, kind of like no special preparations. These are literally, this is literally a test to show whether they are ready to go or not without any special preparation. So we've got a two here. We've got the FE 180 with the 0.25 millimeter nozzle and needle assembly, and that's the double action with the Mac valve and everything. So, and then we have the other one, which is the FE 183, which Daisy, can we get that in there? Hello, compressor, which has got screw-in cups and is a slightly bigger needle size. So I thought we will do some painting with that tonight, just to show, just to see whether they're still working or not, essentially. So hopefully, yes, there we go. We've got the workbench camera set up and it's nice and working. So what we're going to do is we are going to be painting this with the new Tamiya XF93, which is their DAC dark brown, light brown, which you can tell I've really prepared for this tonight, which is the color they specify for the XF93, and that's the one for the desert version of the Panzer IV Ausf G. So we will also be using some of their lacquer thinner with the retarder, which is the orange stuff, as opposed to the standard lacquer thinner, which is the yellow stuff. I could use their acrylic thinner, I just don't have any, and I much prefer working with the lacquer thinner, quite frankly. So we will get a pipette. We'll need one of those. So let's switch over to the workbench camera. And OBS has frozen on me. No, there we go. We're back. So we will put a bit of lacquer thinner in here first of all, just to clean through the airbrush a bit. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Incidentally, this is just wrapping paper. In fact, you can see it's rather star-spangly wrapping paper, but actually, for £1 a roll, it's actually very good large sheet of paper for when you need when you're doing stuff like this. So what we're going to do is we're just going to scoop about 4 into there, give it a good mix. That's about 50-50. And we're back. We're having some technicals tonight, people, but never mind. So that seems fine. Always test it on the underside. So we'll see how thick or how thin this is. And do you know what? That is actually pretty much perfect first time. Could do with being a little bit thinner. Actually, that's fine. As you can see by just that silly little squiggle I've done there, that gives you an idea of how fine you can actually take this 25 pounds airbrush down to. So, like I said, I've pulled this off the shelf, off the workstation today, and it is ready to go. I could probably do with being thinned a little bit more, but I'm quite happy with that. If you listen, you can certainly hear that it doesn't sound overly raspy. So, to answer Mr. B's question, how are your Fender airbrushes faring up? As you can see, they're still working. Now you're all also probably thinking, hang about, JM, you're doing some spraying here with lacquer paints and you're not wearing a mask. Well, I've got the window in the workshop open here, but to be honest, I'm spraying this at such a ridiculously low pressure that, first of all, there aren't any clouds or vapors coming up off the model. And in fact, I'm looking at the light here, there's nothing coming up, and I can't even smell them. So were I to be spraying a 48 scale B1B bomber, yes, I would be wearing a mask and I have the ventilators on, but because this is relatively low scale stuff. So as you can see, our Fender FE813 is still doing the job. It's still working. So we might just add a bit more color to this whilst we've got it on tonight. Because at least, let's face it, folks, by airbrushing live on the internet, I'm actually getting on with finishing a model. So anybody's got any questions about these airbrushes or anything general, or the weather, or what cake did I have today? Carrot cake, by the way. Fire them in. As I say, this is only going to be like a half-hour thing tonight. And apologies for not doing a usual live, but we'll be back with a vengeance. And because this is mixed 50-50 with the lacquer thinner, it's going down in fairly kind of thin coats, but you are letting the lacquer thinner do quite a lot of the heavy lifting, because it will flash off relatively quickly. But in doing so, it does give you a beautifully silky finish. I'm just making sure all the nasty little corners are covered. I'm not being overly precious about getting a completely even coat on this, because I do want that little bit of patchiness to work in my favor when it comes to the weathering process. So, you know, I'm not being overly precious here about getting an absolute solid color down. Now, Drew will probably watch this back and he'll think, why am I not being a little bit more aggressive and forthright with my spraying? I tend to be a little bit cautious. I tend to just kind of hold back a little bit on this, but I will show you something in a second about different airbrushing approaches. Let's just get the light in a bit more there. I think we're getting to the stage where we might need to put some more paint in the cup here. You see, I'm not. That's it. I'm really not going to worry about getting any more paint onto the inside of those mud guards, because they're really not going to be seen on the finished model, and it just adds a bit more depth to the weathering on this. And likewise, although I'm trying to get a little bit of colour onto the idler wheel here, again, I'm not being overly fastidious. I'll just get some paint on these bogies. I just want to use up the last few bits on the colour cup here. The spray pressure, incidentally, is just under 20 psi at the moment. I'm just checking it here. Yeah, it is between about 15-20 psi. So it's that's about 1.5 to 2 bar, I think. I will come back and answer your comments in a second. Let's just finish this. It's amazingly how little paint can actually kind of go a long way. Come on, airbrush, hurry up and run out. There's still more paint in there. Come on. Come on. Goodness me, this is like the porridge of that fairy story. It's not ending. It's just carrying on and on and on and on and on. Oh, I just murder some porridge right now. Oh, no, I think that's it. I think we are down to the vapors, literally. Yeah, there we go. So let's just put a little bit of thinner in there for the moment and put her on standby. That'll do. And then we'll come back and answer some questions. So we'll do a little bit more painting in a second, but let's just answer some questions. Joe Pestaglici says, Amazon US doesn't sell Fengda branded airbrushes, but what looks to be similar brushes with different brand names. I tell you what, Joe, if you can dig out a link for that and post it on the timeline, then we can always go and have a look at those a bit later on. Mike Reeves and Paul Milligan say, what PSI are you shooting that at? And Paul Milligan says, what PSI are you using? Let me just double check, because the compressor's just behind the MacBook here. And it is 20 PSI, which is between literally 1.5 bar. So it's half of between 1 to 2 bar. So that is about, 20 PSI. Which I think is, I think that's a relatively good pressure to be working at. What it means is you're not shooting the paint out at such a high pressure that you risk it actually drying too quickly and it starts granulating. Then you just get that kind of weird effect sometimes where you get, I think Drew's explained it better than me, but you get these kind of drifts of dry paint start appearing in the corners of the model and thing. He'll explain it. He knows all about paint. I'm stickers, he's paint. So let's do some more painting with the Fengda FE183. I'm just going to give the body a little bit of a clean here. But this was the one which I think this airbrush cost about £25 or something. It is, compared to the Iwatas, you can feel it's not quite there. It's degrees of finesse, but compared to some of the other budget airbrushes that I've tried down the years, including some that I actually tried for a company about 10 years ago, and all three of them failed during the test, these are actually really nicely solid built. Are they copies of Iwata airbrushes? No, they're not. They're not. There's only so far you can go with airbrush design, unless it's an Aztec. But are these, are these literally clones in terms of the shape, the elements, everything? Are they clones of Iwata airbrushes? In my opinion, no, I don't think so. I mean, here's an Iwata Eclipse here. Here's a Fender FE183. I mean, if it's trying to copy it, it's not doing a very good job. If it's trying to be Oasis, it's coming out a bit more like Pulp. Obviously, some of the thread sizes might be similar, but I don't think any company can claim to have intellectual property rights on thread sizes. So I don't think they're copies. Some people may disagree with me. It happens. So we're just going to put some more paint in there. Let's pop the old webcam around here. So there we go. We've just put a little bit of thinner in there. And again, we're going to do probably 4 drops of this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then give it a good mix. Incidentally, these are Tamiya's proprietary paint mixing spatula things, but obviously you don't have to use them. I like them, but you don't necessarily have to use them. But what I do have, this was from a set of, these are a set of dentists' tools and things, sculpting tools and dentist tools and things, which I got off of Amazon for, I think it was about 10 quid for the set. So there's some useful tools in here, but some of the other tools that are in here for this £10 set includes this, which is actually pretty neat, as you can see. This is pretty good for ladling up large quantities of paint. In fact, there's another tool in there as well, which does the same job. So if you search around, you can get similar things that will do the job. But I do like those little Tamiya stirrers. So, right, here we go. Let's see what that's. That seems to be fine. So again, we'll see how it goes. Oh, look at that. Absolutely perfect. Now, one of the things which, when Drew comes over sometimes, which at the moment feels like the last century, we will watch modeling YouTube videos, and we enjoy so many of them out there. We love watching Martin Kovac. He's a genius. But one of the things that does drive us mad is sometimes seeing modelers painting with an airbrush, and they are doing this. Now, okay, it's their technique. If it works for them, it works for them. And I'm probably doing a technique here that equally will drive people mad. But the one thing that really, I don't understand the technique, and it's doing this. It's going. Or even doing everything in kind of short steps like that. What you're doing there is you're risking the chances of a bit of build up on the needle, actually on the safety nozzle, the guard, so to speak. Let's see if I can get the guard off on this one. Because what sometimes happens is you get paint starts to build up inside the guard. And if you're doing that kind of stop, start, at some stage, it's going to spit all over your model. So what I tend to prefer is keep the nozzle open and just work backwards and forwards on the area. Now, bear in mind, I'm not looking to cover all this grey. I am actually wanting to keep a little bit of kind of patchiness on this. As you can see, I'm just keeping that nozzle open all the time and going backwards and forwards so that as one area, as the lacquer thinner flashes off on one area, I can then go back and put another coat on the other area. And again, on that idler wheel, we'll just yes, you can open the nozzle up on this a bit more, but as I say, I tend to be a little bit on the cautious side. But that will serve my purposes for the moment, I think, in terms of how much paint I want to get on these bits down here, because we are going to be putting washes and chipping and other effects. So I don't want it to be absolutely obliterated. And in some degree, I want to kind of let that grey coat do the same thing that the real thing was painted in, as in they were shipping these out and putting the coat of yellow over the previous grey on a lot of these vehicles. So that's why I've primed it in Panzer Grey from a Tamiya spray can. So let's get some paint on the front here, shall we? So and what I will do here is, and again, just to show you how good the needle and assembly is on this FE183. I mean, this is supposed to be like your heavy duty airbrush, but actually you can, as you can see, do some quite nice finessed stuff. And if I was to lock the, I can't remember whether this has got an inhibitor. Yes, it has. It's got a needle lock on it. So there you go. If I lock the needle lock off, you can actually do some quite nice freehand stuff in there. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in there, fill in the edges, the centers of these panels. Like so. And then I'm just going to go over with a much broader coat now and just fill everything in. So I must stress, this is not, repeat not, this is not a masterclass on how to use an airbrush, because after 40 years of using them, I am still trying to learn how to use an airbrush. But what this is showing you that this 25 pounds Fender airbrush that we were using back in the summer and that we're using now, it is still working. It is still doing a very, very nice job. And in fact, that's actually, he says modestly, that's actually worked quite nicely on there, because it's given it quite a nice kind of patchy effect. So we will do that again before we finish for the evening, because, you know, there's things on television you want to watch. I could actually do with being a little bit thinner, would you believe? So we'll just add a couple of drops. Just swish it around a bit. So what I'm going to do here is just for giggles, I'm not going to give it like a really even coat. I'm actually just going to kind of almost do like marbling. I'm just going to give it a kind of like a bit of a There you go. Look, you can see how fine that's going down. If I actually wanted to do that as a camouflage, I wouldn't be able to do this because I wouldn't be able to hold my nerve. But here, where I'm just doing it for giggles, just to create effects around the edge there. There you go. That was all done with a 25 quid airbrush. So what we'll do now is we'll open the nozzle up and we'll blend everything back in a bit more now. Now, for those of you tuning in late, I'm using Tamiya's new XF93, which is their light brown German Africa core colour, or North Africa colour, and it's thinned with Tamiya's lacquer thinner Retarder type. And this isn't a demo of the paints, and it isn't a demo on how to airbrush. This is actually a demo to show whether these £26 Fender airbrushes are still working. And the answer to which is yes, they are. So we'll just so quite like that. That's you should never praise your own work, but that's actually working out quite nicely. So again, I'm just going to do that. Yeah, this definitely could do with being a little bit thinner, but not overly so. So I'm just being a little bit mad, a little bit random. I'm just doing this to break up the surface colours a bit. And so at times like this, you do start to notice that little bit of lack of finesse compared to an Iwata, but it's only degrees. It's not. I don't think it's massive. Now what we're going to do is actually that's suddenly gone way too thin. We slightly over thinned it, so we'll just add a couple more drops of paint in there. Yeah, that's a little bit too thin now. So what we'll do is we'll pop the needle guard back on. Give it a, put the model away. Give it a little bit of a black flush. And there we go. Still a little bit too thin, but I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to let the thinner do the work for me. Only got a little bit left in it, and that'll be it. I'm not going to bother refilling it tonight. I should just end this demo. We will open up the nozzle and give it a really good blast just to show you what happens. Because the beauty of these lacquer paints is that, as I say, they flash off so quickly that there's barely any time for them to actually kind of start to run. You can see they're a little bit glossy there because that's where it's still in a slightly kind of fragile liquefied state, but it's not running. Were this to be enamels or water-based acrylics, they would have given up a long time ago. This just kind of holds onto the surface. It's kind of, best way of describing it, it's just literally on a knife edge here now. But this is the thing I like about using lacquer thinners with these paints, or even with kind of like, you know, the kind of Tamiya acrylics and the Gunze acrylics, is it does give you a lot more control over the paint. It gives you a lot more confidence as well. So goodness me, it looks like it's empty. There's still quite a bit of paint in there. And the porridge keeps on coming. So what, we'll just... That'll do. We'll just... There we go, all done. So we'll pop the needle guard back on. And then we will pop a couple of drops of thinner in there. Just back flush it for a second. Blast that through. Then I'm going to empty that into the rag and just give the body a quick rub down and give the colour cup a good clean out. Now, for people who say, well, airbrushing, it just takes ages to clean the airbrush up afterwards, and you have to spend hours stripping it down and all that kind of thing. Actually, no, I'm quite brutal with my airbrushes. I will give them a good strip down clean probably once a month, but that's it. I'll give them a strip down clean if I suddenly experience a problem with them, but other than that, I won't, because you can wear down the components, and you can actually kind of cause damage and things. So by and large, I will give it a good clean out like this, give the bodywork a good clean. I will then take the body off. Oh, let's get the needle out. There we go. Give the needle a good clean. Obviously always away from you, so you're not snagging it. That's fine. Sight the needle back into the body like so. And just gently, until you get a little bit of resistance, that's fine. And it's a tiny little drop of lacquer thinner back in there. Give it another back flush. As you can see, that's now coming out clean. So what I will do is drop a little bit, tiny bit of thinner in there, just to kind of keep it ready. I mean, that will eventually evaporate, but it doesn't hurt, it doesn't destroy the seals, certainly not in 10 years of using these with Iwata airbrushes. And what that means is I can pop it back on the airbrush station there, and it's ready to go. Now we've got the we've got the FE 180 here, which I've not used in a while. So what I am going to do is, we'll use it tonight. Why not? Why not? Let's just check the comments here. Paul Milligan says, do you always mix your colour and thinner in the colour cup? Never done that before. Yeah, by and large, Paul, I do, because it's just convenience and I'm lazy. Probably more the latter than the former. But yeah, I just find it, probably a little bit too much in there. I just find it convenient. It's one less thing to clean up. And we'll just, oops, this is why we've got it here. 2, 3, 4. We'll add another drop and 1 for luck. Now this one's a bit trickier to back flush because you don't have a fully enclosed safety cap. So there we go. And this is a slightly more refined airbrush. This is much better for doing squiggles and lines and things, but again, I say slightly more refined. I think this one was just under £30. So this is the Fengder FE 180, which has got the MAC valve and the needle limiter and everything. But again, we'll just demonstrate again. This has just been, I haven't used this in a while, and I've just literally pulled it off the station here, and we're going to do some painting with it. And as you can see, it's working fine. I'll have to check when we bought these airbrushes. I know it was back at the beginning of summer. But the question from Mr. B was, are these airbrushes still working? And the answer to that, Mr. B, is yes, these airbrushes are still working. I'm just reading some of the comments. So just bear with me. What kind of feckless animal mixes paint in the airbrush? Me, Edward. Me. Tim Campbell says, I'll be honest and say that I fail to get consistently thin paint by mixing in the cup. I start with tattoo ink cups to mix, and it's made things a lot more consistent for me. Yeah, it's whatever works for you. I just, as I say, I'm a mixture of laziness / cockiness that I just do it all in the color cups these days. Because I tend only to use the Tamiya lacquers or other lacquer paints or things that I'm thinning with lacquer thinner, it just makes it that much easier for me. So again, as I said, this airbrush isn't really one for doing coverage of large areas, but where we're just giving it these kind of lazy coats of, I suppose you could call it marbling. I don't know. I wouldn't call it marbling. But as you can see, our little Fender FE180 is still doing a job. And there's a massive, great big blob or something there, which I need to deal with. But yeah, I can understand people, they might not want to mix in the color cup. I believe, as I say, fully understand that. It is purely one of those things down the years. I've just got used to doing it. Brian Walton says, yes, I mix outside the airbrush in tattoo paint pots, get thousands on the eBay for a few pounds. And Edmund McKeaney says, this is going to get me writing angry letters to the Telegraph. Well, it's the only kind of letters they publish, so you're on for a good start there. So again, I'm just for my own amusement, I'm just airbrushing squiggles and nonsense shapes all over this Panzer at the moment. Let's get the no-tech light done there. So there's nothing like airbrushing live on the internet to suddenly start noticing how absolutely shocking your paint preparation was in the first instance. And I don't know if you can see that there, but that's a shocker. That's not a speck of dust, that's an asteroid. I'm just trying to think, is there going to be anything that's actually going to cover that when I'm doing the there we go. We'll get our beautiful Infinity sander, which I love these. I think these are the best sanding sponges I have ever used. Got these from Premium Hobbies, based down the road in Weston-super-Mare. And I was so impressed, I actually bought the full set off of them. They are beautiful. They are without doubt the finest sanding sponges I've ever used. And I'm not saying that because somebody gave them to me. I went out and bought these with my hard-earned money. That'll probably do the trick. Yeah, so let's carry on with that. A few more squiggles, nonsense shapes, just random, absolute silliness. So if I was doing this in the workshop tonight by myself without doing this live, I would be massively overthinking this. I really would be. I would be just being so cautious, but doing it live and just throwing caution to the wind and trying crazy things is actually getting me, well, it's actually getting me actually finishing the model or getting further to finishing the model. But it's also netting some actual quite nice effects that I like the look of, which I wouldn't usually kind of do. Right. So again, there I've just really just kind of like put down like a nonsense coat of paint, and now I'll just go in, open the nozzle up a bit more, and we'll put a much heavier coat down, which then starts blocking things out a bit. And as I said earlier, the beauty of these lacquer paints is that because the lacquer thinner itself flashes off so quickly, you can relatively open the nozzle up and really give it, really let rip, give it some welly, which you can't really do with enamel paints because they will hold on for a certain amount of time and then they will say, right, that's it, too much, we're going to run now. We will at some stage do another airbrushing pop-up with this Fender FE180, but try and actually do some, some actual camo. But tonight, this is just all about showing you that they are still working, they are still doing a job, they have not broken down, they have not given up the ghost. And such is my confidence in them that I'm actually prepared to let them loose on, well, on a kit that is not, not a cheap kit. This is about a 40 quid tank model, and I'm quite happy to do so. Although I would still say, in the long term, if you're really serious about painting your models with an airbrush, I would still invest in an Iwata. But I'm sufficiently impressed with these to take the risk on using them on slightly kind of more prestigious. Oh, we've still got loads of paint in there. Unbelievable. Joe says, I've been wanting to get the Infinity Sanders too. They look impressive. They are. They do a hard version and they do the soft foam back versions. I've got the foam back versions. They are fantastic. I cannot speak highly enough of them. I actually am going to put in an order for some of the hardback ones as well. And I will say yet again, Drew and I joke about this on the show, being some Somerset lads, but we are extraordinarily blessed in this great county of ours to have so many good resources for modelling gear. Obviously, as I've mentioned, Premium Hobbies, who are based in Weston-super-Mare. There's Antics in Bristol. Okay, it's Gloucestershire, but you know, we'll still call it West Country. And of course, the fantastic Frome Model Centre, who I'm desperately hoping to go and visit them very, very soon, because a trip to Frome in the autumn is one of my favourite things. And honestly, the last couple of weeks, I've been thinking, right, yeah, I'll make that trip to Frome, and then things have got in the way. Life has got in the way. Work has got in the way. A lack of petrol has got in the way. So we will be popping down there soon. Might even try and do like a little pop-up live actually in the shop. But there are some things I need to pick up from them, and obviously have a lovely afternoon out in Frome as well. But yeah, and obviously we've got Jadlam as well out near Glastonbury. So yeah, we are exceptionally blessed to have so many very fine avenues to buy things, which we can then obviously share on this platform. Still got paint in there. And the thing about doing these kind of like random squiggles and patchy marbling effects is that when you start going over them with a heavier coat, where the color is previously, it starts getting slightly more intense, whereas where you've left the gray areas, although you're covering them with some of the desert sand color, it's going to be paler. You're going to get more intensity from where you've already got some of the sand yellow on there. So there's a method in the madness. Oops, Daisy, we've actually managed to run a bit of paint there because we were a little bit too heavy, but that's flashed off. That's flashed off immediately. And we can just go in there, put a heavier coat in there, same there. We're going to wrap this up in a minute, people, because this is only supposed to be like 10-15 minutes. But I got carried away painting me Panzer. Goodness me, a little bit of paint goes a long way on this model. You can see tonight I've only just been using drops of paint, and yet we have actually pretty much covered this entire body of the Panzer IV with as much sand yellow as we actually need. I'll do. I'll just do the. So see if I can kind of demonstrate what I'm talking about when you put a. So we'll build up some of these colours on. It's actually a little bit. It's getting a bit thinner now, but that'll do. And then we just open the nozzle up and start filling it in a bit more. And where we've got some of that colour already in the middle, it just gives it a little bit more intensity. But I think this is actually starting to get a little bit too thin now. We'll actually run out of paint this evening. I know I said earlier on about doing that stop, start, but here I just need to. Still got loads and loads of things to paint on this. It's unbelievable. But tremendous fun. Right, last bit for tonight, and then we need to knock off. I need to have some food. Ah, there we go. I've made it run. I've actually managed to make it run there. So we give it a few seconds, let the lacquer thinner start to flash off a bit. Then we can actually go in there and put another coat on top. And then what it does is it just goes all nice and uniform again. Whereas if this was water-based acrylics, it would just run, and then it would start running, and then you've got to really stop and wait for it to fully dry. But this is the beauty of lacquers. I love working with them. In some respects, they can be quite forgiving, but in many other respects, they can be quite unforgiving because they are obviously quite hot paints. And that, I think, is going to be that for tonight. So again, I'm just going to pop a little bit of colour in there, backflash it. Empty that onto the rag. Just give the whole brush a nice clean. It's fine. Place it back in the nozzle. Bing, like so. Tighten everything up. Just give it another. And again, I should pop that back in the airbrush station with a little bit of thinner in there. And that is the state that I left them in. I haven't used this for a couple of weeks actually, but that's the state I left it in before this evening when I just popped them off the rack and started using them again. So yeah, I genuinely am really impressed with these airbrushes. They belie their budget prices, and the build quality belies their budget prices. I still would say to people, if you can afford it, get a decent airbrush. And here is my Iwata Eclipse, which I think is a good base standard airbrush. I think this is a fantastic bit of kit. But obviously, if your budgets are a bit tight, then I think these Fengler airbrushes are better than they should be, quite frankly. And once they go wrong, once they start breaking down, of course, we will tell you on the show. And then we will have a quite honest assessment of how long they've lasted. But for the best part of 6 months-ish that we've been trialing these, I'll probably find out it's shorter than 6 months or it's been longer than 6 months. But they are still working. They are still performing, and they are still doing a job. So, and as you've seen tonight, there we go. We've got that kind of the very basic coat of that pale brown on there. And two airbrushes that, frankly, probably together almost cost less than the actual model. So, Joe says, let's have a look. Dave Sindel says, I use enamels in heavier coats than you're doing, and I don't have issues with running. Thin with lacquer thinners, they behave much the same. Yeah, that's a very good point, actually, Dave, because I haven't used enamels now for a very long time in airbrushing, and obviously back then I was using enamel thinners. I did try a while back. I thinned some Humbrol with the lacquer thinners and found that actually you can spray enamels with lacquer thinners. It's a fairly hot lacquer. The thinner is actually quite hot, so it'll pretty much thin everything. So yeah, I do get your point there. I was thinking more of when I used to thin them with enamel thinners, because there's a certain limit to how the enamel thinner can hold everything together before, if it's too heavy, then it just goes, and you'll start running and flooding and everything. But that's a very good point, Dave. And Tim Campbell says for $10 in the US, they're incredibly cheap even compared to nail sanding sticks. All right, okay, that's the Infini ones. And Joe says, I'm thinking of getting one of these cheaper brushes for metallics. Yeah, get it for metallics. Get it for using just with water-based acrylics, or use them for for varnishes only. I am sufficiently what's the word I'm looking for? I'm sufficiently curious / pig-headed enough to use these as much as possible, up to the point where they really do start wearing out. But at the moment, they're not showing any signs of wearing out. They are seriously impressive brushes. And we bought them. We haven't been given them. We've actually gone out and bought these. And Tim Campbell says, seconded for the Infini sanders. Took delivery this week. Beautiful, wonderful things. Don't know why I've held off buying them. Yeah. They're fantastic. They really are good quality sanders. So, I have no compunctions in saying to people, try twin packs, see you get on with them. But I have bought an entire pack of them. One pack is still up there. I still haven't got around to opening that pack, because the twin pack of 400s that I used, I'm still using just the one, and thus far it has shown no signs of wearing out, fragmenting. I've got a little bit of a dint. Don't know if you can just see it just there. I've got a little bit of a dint in there now from where it's hit something. But other than that, they're holding their shape. They're still sounding. They're fantastic. I really like them. So that's about it for tonight. We've gone on, goodness me, an hour. It was only supposed to be a 30-minute show. To answer, so to Mr. B, if you're watching tonight on the old Twitter, the answer to your question, how are your two Fengda airbrushes holding up? Very well. So if you've got the money and you want to try them, give them a go. I still say invest in a quality airbrush for the long term. But if you're looking for something to try them out, or you're just curious about what can be done with these airbrushes, or you're looking for something to use as a secondary role, etc., 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 I think they're great, and I don't think they're copies of Iwata airbrushes either. So, on that note, interesting note, thanks to everybody for watching tonight. Like I say, this is only like a short one. So hopefully we'll be back on Sunday with news. And boy, it's been another busy week of modelling news. We are working on the Festival of Modelling, and we are putting together a programme for the weekend, which is actually 4 weeks away. 4 weeks away. So, I better get a wiggle on with that. So, on that note, thank you for watching. As always, stay safe, stay out of trouble, and we will hopefully see you on Sunday. So from this pop-up live, bye for now.